But your first comedian tonight is an absolute comedy legend and the single reason that cigars will always be sort of cool. Let's hear it from Mr. George Burns.
How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? I'd like to say that it's an honor to be here. I'd like to say that I'm thrilled to be here, but let's face it, I've been dead for nearly 20 years. It's literally a miracle I'm anywhere. I am, of course, honored to be performing on the stage tonight with so many fantastic deceased comedians. Truth be told, I was never much of a joke teller myself. My act consisted of silly stories and songs. If there were two things in life I loved to do, it was drink scotch and sing. And I found that most people preferred to hear me drink scotch. I was a performer nearly all my life, and I lived 100 years, and that's a long time by anyone's count. I started off working with a group called the Pee Wee Quartet as a boy. We used to sing harmony down at the ferry boats in the docks. We'd lay a hat on the ground. Some people would put money in the hat. Some would take money from the hat, and others would simply take the hat. It wasn't until 1923 when I began working with a young Irish Catholic girl that people recognized I had a talent. And they were right, I did have a talent. And I was married to her for 38 years. I used to always say if you lived to be 100, you had it made. Very few people die past that age. I made it to 100 and barely a day more before my time came. But all those years, I never dreaded it in the least, because I knew it'd be a happy day for me because I'd be reunited with my beautiful wife, Gracie Allen. As it turns out, we've been booked in separate rooms. I'm just hoping hers has air conditioning. I was born a very long time ago, it's true. When I was a boy, the Dead Sea was merely sick. That's why I never understood why I failed U.S. history as a child. There was so little of it. Smartness, of course, did run in my family. I was so smart in grade school, my teacher was in my class for 5 years. When you live as long as I did, you're bound to pick up some wisdoms in life you can pass on to a younger generation, and I picked up a few of my own. Happiness is having a large, loving, close-knit family in a different city. Sincerity is everything in life, and if you can fake that, you've got it made. Happiness is a good meal, a good cigar, and a good woman, or a bad woman. It depends on how much happiness you can handle. Thanks. What does it mean to come home to a beautiful woman that gives you a little love, a little tenderness, a little affection? It means you're in the wrong house. There were, of course, some things in life that I would never understand. To me, retirement at 65 was ridiculous. When I was 65, I still had pimples. Getting older is not an easy thing, and if there's a man that knows that as well as me, I'd like to meet him. When you get older, first you forget names, then you forget faces, then you forget to bring your zipper up, and finally you forget to bring it down. They say all things that go up must come down, but I can tell you from experience that as you get older, not all things that are down can come up again. I often said that sex at 90 was a lot like playing pool with a rope. As an old man, I used to joke that I couldn't die because I was booked. But if tonight has taught us anything, not even death can keep me from doing well on stage. Before I leave here tonight and enter back into the abyss, I'd like to share a story with you of how I met Gracie. Can I do that for you, please? You know, actually, it only ever took me one drink to get loaded. Problem was, I could never remember if it was the 13th or the 14th. They're calling for me. I remember meeting Gracie like it was yesterday, and believe me, it was a lot longer ago than that. I was working in San Francisco at the time at the Gym Theater. Back then, they called me Smiling Frankie Davis. And my act consisted of smart songs and syncopated patter. My opening number was, "The birds are softly singing in, the perfume flowers blooming, and the wind is gently blowing as we're passing by. As we're passing by." I told you I used to love to sing. Well, after the opening number, I looked out into the crowd and I spotted Gracie sitting in the 10th row. This wasn't hard to do, she was the only one left. So I leaned over the lights and I thanked her for coming and staying for the show, and she said, "Now you can help me with something. My dress, it's caught in the seat." So I did, and that night we had our first date. I was short on money, so I went to the stage manager and said, "How do you like the show?" And he punched me in the mouth. From that day on, I was known as Plain Frankie Davis. 3 years later, we were married in Cleveland, Ohio. I remember after I gave the Justice of the Peace $5. No, it was $2. Yeah, that's right, $2. It reminds me, I still owe Gracie $3 and change. But I said to Gracie, "Where would you like to go for the honeymoon?" And she said, as she would, "Oh, I don't know, ask my sister Bessie." So I had a talk with Bessie, and I explained to her that a honeymoon would be much more fun with only 2 people. And I convinced her. The 2 of them sent me photos from Niagara Falls every day. That's a joke, of course. I only received 1 photo.
George Burns, everybody. Let's hear it for Mr. George Burns. How do you follow that, huh?